The meeting is now called to order. I'd like for you to join us as Vice Chairman Jerry Langley does our invocation, and Frankie Waters will do our pledge. Please stand and join us.
Let us pray. Eternal God, our Father, we are grateful that you've allowed us to assemble here one more time to do the business of your people. And Father, we pause in remembrance of all those who have lost their lives in these past 2 days. God, we just pray your grace and mercy upon their loved ones. And Father, now touch our hearts and minds that we may make wise and prudent decisions concerning the business of your people. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight. A little bit of housekeeping. If you have a cell phone, please put it in the silence mode or either turn it off. Next item is conflict of interest. Is there any commissioner who wishes to make a disclosure regarding any matter that is before the board tonight?
I will disclose at the proper time.
Moving on to approval of the agenda. Need the motion to approve
Motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
need to add a closed session at the end tonight. I promise you it'll be very quick.
Need a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Second.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0, right? Okay, just making sure. Need a motion, I don't need a motion. We're going in items for presentation, and I understand Ms. Parker's not here. Is that right, Katie? Okay. So, Commissioner Richardson, we need a motion to go in. We need a motion to go into,
Commissioner Richardson got to do this item.
that presentation. Mr. Richardson go in for his presentation.
Well, this presentation is going to be made by the executive. Excuse me. Thank you. This presentation is going to be made by the executive with the company that handles our Title IV or non-supporting parents for the county as a contractor, and they're doing a great job. So if you would come forward, ma'am, and make our presentation.
So thank you very much for allowing me to be here today. What I wanted to do is ask for a proclamation for Child Support Awareness Month for August. I wanted to give you a little history about Child Support Awareness Month. In 1995, President Bill Clinton proclaimed August as National Child Support Awareness Month. And from here on out, all the states recognize August as Child Support Awareness Month. So one of the things we wanted to do, we presented a proclamation, and I didn't know if Mr. Richardson wanted me to read that proclamation, or if you wanted to.
I think it would be in order for you to read the proclamation.
Okay. So whereas Beaufort County is recognized in August as Child Support Awareness Month and reaffirms its commitment to strengthening Beaufort County's families by providing child support services to improve the economic stability and well-being of children. And whereas in state fiscal year 2018-2019, more than $2.7 million in child support was collected from parents of Beaufort County's children. And whereas there are nearly 2,700 child support orders in place working to ensure that more than 2,700 children receive financial support from their parents. And whereas Child Support Awareness Month salutes the diligent working parents who spend time with their child and who makes regular child support payments to safeguard their children's future. And whereas strengthening individuals and families promotes the safety and well-being of children, provides stability, improves the lives of children, and provides opportunities for families to be able to enhance their children's futures. And whereas children who do not receive adequate financial and emotional support from their parents may experience greater difficulty in becoming healthy, happy, and productive citizens. And whereas many concerned and dedicated judges, district attorneys, clerks of courts, sheriff's personnel, and child support professionals work to establish and enforce child support orders for Beaufort County children, one of our county's most vital resources. Now, therefore, we, the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim August 2019 as Child Support Awareness Month in Beaufort County and commend its observance to all citizens.
I will make a motion that we approve this, but I have two things I want to add to that, and you can tell me whether I'm right or wrong. I believe the payout in Beaufort, even though we collect 2.7 from people in Beaufort County, the payout in the county is more like $4.5 million, isn't it?
It is. That's based on what we took in, but there's collections in other states that are not reported unless it came in through our centralized collections agency.
And that's a lot of money that all goes to families and to help families that are definitely in need. And now I want to do a plug, and the plug goes like this. For parents who have child support problems of collecting money from absent parents, you really don't have to go to a lawyer in order to get this done. You can go directly to social services and ask to make a claim there, and they will take your case for you. This is very economical, especially most parents are very distressed at the time that they are needing aid for their children. So if the county can do it for you within our system at no cost to you, that is a great thing, and enough people are aware of that. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm finished. Yeah.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Lightacker.
Need a motion to go into public hearing. Need a second? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, 7-0.
I didn't keep it up.
That's all right, okay. So Martin Johnson, if you'll come up.
This is a public hearing subject to North Carolina General Statute 158, 7.1 and 7.2. And the public hearing is to receive comments on a request to revise the Economic Development Performance Grant to Project Mojo. Project Mojo designs and manufactures energy-efficient motor launchers. The company now anticipates creating or causing to be created an estimated investment of $16.7 million and an estimated 186 jobs over 5 years if Beaufort County is selected for the project. The proposed performance grant will be based on that investment in jobs and is anticipated to be about $185,000. The public benefit derived from this performance grant are an increase in the tax base and the creation of new jobs in Beaufort County. Are there any comments?
Any questions?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do we have anyone from the public that'd like to speak? Okay. We have a motion to close.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0.
Thank you.
We're going into public comments. Captain Swain, please come up, please.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Galen Swain. I was born here 62 years ago, and I never really left the area. I know this place. The first time I ever heard about a WOOF program was about 40 years ago It was a Democrat from a blue state telling me that he wanted to help the feds release the wolves here. And I said, why would anybody want to do that? That's insane. And he was talking about their majestic animals and all. So I said, well, you like what you're doing now. I said, but this job you're doing is going to come back and bite us later on. There are problems. And since then, bad things has happened. When I was a younger man, we didn't have coyote hunting license around here. There were no license to come, because we didn't have coyotes. The coyotes was a problem that got dropped in our laps. And then as soon as they did it, they'll sell us hunting license to fix the problem. It's like a computer virus. These companies that protect your computer, they give you a virus, and if you give them your money, they'll tell you how to get rid of the problem. But these coyotes are the same thing. And the people in town, they're out of touch with what's going on out where I live at. I listen to 103.7 Coast to Coast Radio a lot. And they had the Sunrise radio show the other morning, and it was a lady from the government that was an expert about these animals. And she said that if coyotes are around your house, she said, squirt them with a garden hose and throw tennis balls at them and cut down any bushes in the yard so they can't hide. I swear to God, that's what the lady said. I can't find any tennis balls to fit my shotgun, so. but so the feds are protecting the wolves. They don't want the wolves in cages. They want to protect the wolves. And it's more like they want people in cages around here. I heard some talk about $20 million for a new jail. They want the wolves to run loose and some non-violent kids in cages. They got it backwards. The red wolf was an endangered species. When I come home one night, there's one in my driveway, a full-grown, very healthy looking. He looked me right in the eyes. I looked, we were about 4 foot away. I was glad I wasn't on my motorcycle. I was in my car that night. He was not scared of me. There was no fear on him. He looked at me like, what was I doing in my driveway? And see, people in town, if you've never looked one in the face, you don't know what it feels like. And there's people down where I live, it's a little bit better now. I had a neighbor that used to cook he lived by himself. He cooked a big pot of food, eat a couple of bowls for a couple of days, get tired and dump it out. It called him in, and my dog would be in the house at nighttime, and it sounded like 200 coyotes around my house. 20 or 30 can sound like a couple of hundred. The way they yelp, it's real easy to get confused. And I've had packs of them all around my house. The place is lousy with them. I live down by Pine Town. We don't have street lights or stoplights or nothing. It's out in the sticks. And you can't throw scraps out down there because you're liable to open the door and there's something carnivorous bigger than you down there now. I've seen big bears right in my yard now. But this problem with the wolves, what really got my goat was, it's this wildfire spending going on down here. We buy things, millions of dollars worth of stuff that we don't need with no referendum. Nobody asked me that I want a smart meter. There was taxation without any representation. And after what happened to Miss Brenda Hamilton, I think we owe it to her and her family and the locals to find out what did get her, because whatever got her is still about down there. And when I drive to town in the morning, there's little kids with their brothers and sisters standing out by the school bus lines. And I'm terrified for those kids, because whatever it is still out there. And with all the money, millions of dollars that goes through this place, one of the county commissioners said he wanted a spending cap put on how much was spent finding out what happened to Brenda Hamilton. And that just got my goat. That's just too much. And I want to know, what was her life worth? If we're going to put a spending cap on her life, I'd kind of like to know what the spending cap was going to be, because really, if you can put price tags on people's lives as taxpayers, and she was a plus. She was a school teacher. She was educating our children. Everybody's a plus for a minus. She was a plus. And she was well loved in the community. And I think the community deserves answers. And I really would like to know what the spending cap was spent on her life, what that was going to be set at. I know you probably don't know right now, so I'll come back next month and check on what the spending cap amount was, and we deserve, she deserves to try our very best to find out what happened. Those little kids, God forbid, if something happens to one of these kids, we've kind of swept this under the rug, we ain't give it our best shot. It's going to be some upset folks down that way. That's about all I got to say about that, and thank you for your time. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Swain. Ms. Mish?
Good evening, Chairman Evans, Commissioners. Chairman Evans, about the recently mentioned jail report, thank you for taking the time, making the effort to see our jail administrator, to personally get a better understanding to deal with the issues we face. Vice Chairman Langley not so long ago challenged each of you to go and personally speak to the jail administrator, Lieutenant Bryan, and have you done that? I assume that's mostly a no. I'm here to ask Vice Chairman Langley to bring Lieutenant Bryan in here to give us a presentation about the functioning of our jail and reiterate what our actual needs would be for a new facility. Please bring this law enforcement professional and PhD candidate in here to give us an overview from a current daily basis perspective, a perspective none of us could possibly know but absolutely need to hear. We would be wise to gather as much insight as possible as we have landed ourselves in a spending trap with no way to avoid being an easy target for more federal civil lawsuits. It's also time to help the public understand what is best for all of our long-term financial interests. We've heard for too many years we don't need a new jail, in spite of a Superior Court judge mandating we build one, in spite of our violating every single day the federal civil rights of those in our jail. It's time we all take responsibility, move forward with wisdom and backbone, and put forth a plan. We are long overdue in accepting we are throwing away money and that it's time to save ourselves from long-term financial ruin. Vice Chairman Langley, you and your fellow commissioners have my support in finding a clear path to understanding the need for common ground and doing the work that needs to finally get done. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mish. Ms. Garrison?
As a taxpayer, I was interested in the cost of this new building. The acquisition of this building, $472,606. Renovations, $642,177. The total amount of this building, $1,114,783. That's a lot of money for Beaufort County, over $1 million for this nice building that we're sitting in. That's air-conditioned, heated, and less than half full tonight with present taxpayers. There are 45 homeless veterans in Pitt County. We sit here in this nice air-conditioned building that cost us over $1 million while they sleep in tents. For the past 8 years, there's been a discussion of placing new locks on the jail cell doors. This has taken place over 8 years. The current cost, I believe, is over $700,000. The trash disposal site in Pamlico Beach was closed to save the taxpayers approximately $3,000. The trash disposal site in Sydney Crossroads was to be updated to accommodate for the increased number of households using that site. On Saturday and Sunday, the trash containers are so full that you cannot place your trash in any of these containers unless you walk up 7 steps and hope that you can throw your trash on top of the heap. Our schools are constantly asking for more money. There are many needs in the community of Beaufort County. I'm not sure that $1 million for this building was one of those needs. Excuse me, but I don't believe that this building is of any value to the hard-working taxpayers of Beaufort County. This building is another example of elected officials and their own self-aggrandizement. As a hard-working taxpayer, I would like to see that my taxpayers benefit the public and benefit the taxpayers of Beaufort County.
Kathleen Tandy.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Tahaney. Thank you for this opportunity. It was very close. I recognize that. I am a Washington resident, and I am here to speak on behalf of the Aurora Fossil Museum, and I've been a board member there since 2016. The purpose for me coming today is really threefold. I'd like to recognize the Aurora Fossil Museum staff for their excellent partnership in education of the young and old and across all different socioeconomic groups, and recognize the museum's attempts to grow while mostly self-supporting, and also share a couple of interesting statistics and examples of positive global attention that the museum has drawn to Beaufort County. I'd like to start out, first of all, talking about Imagine NC. That is an acronym for Integrating Math and Geology in Eastern North Carolina. And this is an educational program that was based on a collaboration with Nutrien, East Carolina University, and the museum. What's so wonderful about this is there was a program for both the elementary students and the middle school students. This program has gone on for the last 3 years, and it was based on a Borrow's Welcome grant. What originally started with just the students of Snowden Elementary School has now expanded to private school students, charter school students, and public school students throughout the county. So it's been very successful, and what's unique about this program is it exposes our young kids to fabulous mentors in the sciences, geologists, paleontologists, engineers. So it's been a very successful program. Our Boy Scout Merit Badge program has been finalized, and this allows our Boy Scouts to get badges now in mining and geology. And this was a result of a collaboration with Beaufort County Community College and Nutrien as well, too. I'd like to read a letter of appreciation the board received just recently. Good morning. As this school year comes to a close, I wanted to make you aware of our 8th grade science scores. This year's class was 88.89% proficient, which was the highest in Beaufort County. Many of these students have been involved in the Imagine NC for the past 2 years. I truly believe that having the hands-on experiences your camp offered played a major role in their understanding and comprehension. Thank you for bringing these experiences to our students and for being such a wonderful partner in our success. Some other examples of our ability to be self-supporting is the many successful grants that we have written. Most recently, after several hurricanes, our roof that had been patched here and there needed a complete replacement. Through a roof repair campaign online by contacting former visitors, we were able to raise $20,000, and the museum now has a brand new roof, and all of the displays are secured. Just a couple of interesting statistics. We've been trying to track where our visitors come from. Our new director, not so new, but a couple of years old, Mrs. Crane has been tracking since 2015. And at that point, we're getting about 15,000 visitors. And that continues to increase over the years. And in 2018, we had 20,000 visitors. We are also trying to figure out where are these people coming from, and consistently we have had 50 states represented in the last couple of years. We missed Hawaii one year. Very interesting, too, is how far away people are coming to this museum. We have had consistent visits from folks from Australia, China, New Zealand, Denmark, Netherlands, Germany, Spain, the United Kingdom, and I really appreciate the Beaufort County website actually features the Aurora Museum as an important location. And I ask all of you to please continue to support our efforts to grow as a nonprofit and to bring positive attention to Beaufort County. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. We're down to items for consent.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'd like to pull item number 4 for some additional discussion, which is EMS schedule of fees updated.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the items for consent except item number 4.
Second.
Okay, we're going to move that down to the first item and the item for decision. We okay with that? Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2. Motion passes. Okay, we're down to items for decision. Hood, if you want to talk about EMS schedule?
Well, I would like to ask the question, why do we all of a sudden have, excuse me, I'm on. Why do we all of a sudden have the item in here having to do with transport fees? We are a non-transport agency other than what Chocowinity does. So why do transport fees matter?
In response to that question, when the county took over the billing for all agencies in the county with the exception of Washington, that included both the emergency and non-emergency transports that take place of all those agencies. So in that, we are billing for Chocowinity's calls. For the billing agency to be able to collect the new updated rate, it must be reflected in our fees, what that rate is, and that's the addition to our fees.
Okay, we're only billing for Chocowinity. We're not billing for the private companies.
No, sir.
Okay.
And the only reason for that is because Chocowinity is both, because it is our EMS system as well as non-emergency.
Okay, my next question, there are no plans for Beaufort County to start transport. That's a question.
No, sir, there are no plans.
Thank you. Pardon?
Making a motion to go ahead and say everything's okay?
Well, it's out of the consent agenda, so I can make a motion to go ahead and approve it.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? 7-0.
Good evening, Commissioners. The first item before you this evening deals with the Beaufort County Water Department. If you recall, over the past several years, we've had numerous discussions about the benefits of a hydraulic model. We moved forward with issuing a request for proposals from engineering firms in March. We received multiple responses. The staff, as well as a commissioner, met with 3 firms. We conducted interviews on June the 13th, and based upon those interviews and the qualifications, we recommend that Withers and Ravenel be selected as the engineering firm to prepare a hydraulic model for the Beaufort County Water Department. Regarding budget, the fiscal year 2019 budget included $150,000 for the project. Since those funds were not expended during fiscal year 2019, they reverted back to fund balance. So the budget amendment that you see before you today is to pull those funds back out of fund balance. The amount that's requested is $160,000. That does include a contingency, and Withers and Ravenel's proposal was $155,000, which is 6% of an increase over the estimate which was prepared approximately 2 years ago. And also, Withers and Ravenel made a presentation to the Water Committee a couple of weeks ago.
Commissioner Richards.
What are the benefits? How are we going to make money by spending this money?
The benefits are that it will help to bring us into the electronic age. We will no longer be as dependent on paper plans, so our system will be in the hydraulic model. It will allow us to plan more precisely for the future. We can utilize the analysis from the hydraulic model to determine the best changes or to the system, looking as far as the flows and the pressures. If an industry were to come into Beaufort County and have a need for water, then we would have the hydraulic model that would help us to identify what specific upgrades would need to be put into place to provide the water requirements that they would have. It would also strengthen our ability in the funding agencies. When you have you're able to provide the backup of a hydraulic model, you score higher on your projects. And it would help us to prepare a capital improvements plan, which is, again, is something that has been discussed numerous times in the past. It would give us the backup for those capital improvements.
Well, the problem I have with this is I don't see any place that this puts money in our pocket. Do we have any incidences within our system of water hammer or other hydraulic problems, irregularities?
Low pressure is our biggest issue that we have in our system, and we have many areas of low pressure, many areas.
You say low pressure, you're talking about below the 20 pounds, is it 20 pounds
No,
or 30 pounds?
No, it's not. As long as our system is operating normal, we have sufficient pressures, but if there's any break or any abnormalities that occurs in the system, that's when we have the pressure issues. We do have a lot of single source and single feeds, so we're looking at how we can assist with that. If you recall, there's been discussion in the past regarding an elevated tank on the south side of the river to help alleviate some low pressure problems in that area. And again, it's based upon usage.
Thank you.
I see your total sum here is $165,000, but also see you got a hourly fee of $5,000 an hour.
No, sir. If it says that, that's incorrect.
Is that what it says, Stan?
No, sir, that's money, a $5,000 set aside, and that will be billed against hourly as needed.
Hourly fee, $5,000.
That's just the portion that it will be billed against that $5,000. That's $5,000 set aside that any additional changes would be billed against that.
Well, I'm glad you cleared that up, because I was wondering, was that a 60-minute hour?
No, sir. If consultant engineers receive that, I would be back in the consulting business.
You're on your way if you do. Thank you.
Commissioner Waters.
Christina, getting back to Commissioner Richardson's question, would this model allow us to better utilize our own wells versus purchasing water?
175.
It would help us to analyze the system, but our usage of wells is tied to our withdrawal rates, and we're in the central capacity use plain district, so we have limitations based upon that.
Commissioner Langley.
I was going to say motion to approve.
Okay. We have a motion.
Okay. Second.
Let me ask
Discussion.
one
Sure.
question on
Sure.
discussion. Who's going to staff this? Who's going to run this hydraulic system, which is a fairly complicated thing?
Included in the RFQ is that Withers and Ravenel will provide updates for the model for 3 years after they prepare the model. We're expecting the cost for that to be minimal because once you prepare it and you calibrate it, there should be minimal changes to that.
Well, there's one thing I need to disclose. I'm also an engineer. I also design water systems, not quite as big as the one that we have here, so I have an understanding of this. And this is another one of those things that is a toy. It's not going to make you any money. It's something that's nice to say that you have, like I drive a Cadillac. But other than that, it's not going to do anything for you. It looks good in the engineering community, but you have to have staff to use this thing, even if you wanted to use it. Low pressures in the system are always going to be there. Anytime you break a line, by definition, you've got a low pressure situation. So it's not going to help you with that. And I really don't see a benefit considering our staff, that we don't have the staff to cover this, even if we had the need for it. And I don't see where we have the need for it because we're not a high-flow system. The reason I ask about hydraulic brakes and those kind of things going on in the system is if you were a high-use system in a very dense area, you would have some velocity problems where one of these things would help you. Folks, we're country. We don't have any place that we get into high velocities within the system. So I can't vote for this because it's not going to save us any money. It's not going to make us any money. It's an expense.
What benefit does it have, Christina?
It's another tool in our toolbox, and the benefit is that it helps us to analyze our system, to understand our system, and overall allows us to know more about our system and to provide a higher quality water end users. Because once we have the hydraulic model, you're able to test, you're able to look at the age of your water and to make sure that it improves the overall quality of our water. And while it's true, our system, we do not have a hydraulic model, but we do expend funds for certain specific instances, and we have to hire outside engineering firms to come in and to do a smaller hydraulic model for a specific location. So if we have an overall model of the entire overall system, I agree with Commissioner Richardson, it's not a moneymaker, but it is something that improves our water system and provides a higher quality of water to our end users. And it's also something that most other water systems already have, and Beaufort, they have created a hydraulic model in years past, and Beaufort County did not expend the funds to do that. Again, it's a requirement for a lot of funding agencies.
Also, Commissioner Richardson asked who's going to operate this. If memory serves me well, I saw that they're going to do some training.
Yes, sir.
So that's going to train the people that we already have on staff. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, for certain capabilities, but this will be a complicated model, so there will be additional upkeep. But again, it's based upon the growth of our county. We don't know what the future holds, but we try to be prepared for growth in the future.
I understand. Another part of it is this $5,000 is worrying me. I got to be honest with you.
Okay.
Now, this guy that's doing the training, it's not $5,000 an hour. That's just a set aside.
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir, it is not. No, sir. No, sir.
Stan?
Yeah. Christina,
Yes.
is this been budgeted in this year's budget?
No, sir, it was in last year's budget,
Last
but
year's
we were
budget.
unable to complete it before the June 30th deadline.
The taxpayers pay for it or the water users pay for it?
Water users.
Okay.
Out of the enterprise fund.
Okay.
It was purely a timing issue.
Thank you.
Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2, motion passes.
Commissioners, the next item is dealing with the determination of facility capital projects. To refresh everyone's memory, the fiscal year 2020 budget established a facility/capital improvement fund in the amount of $575,000. At that time, it was said that the specific projects would be brought back to the commissioners for their approval, so that is what is presented to you this evening. There's a summary of the different projects. For the courthouse, and again, this list was comprised with staff and based upon direction that we have received from the commissioners in the past. As you'll see, the majority of the cost is dealing with the courthouse. Again, this is a building that funds have been expended on the past few years. The first major capital project that we undertook was putting a new roof on the building. And then the next year, we previously had a 3-year plan to go in and to do the renovations, but then we had some issues in the jail and the upper stories dealing with fireproofing and fire separation, so the architectural finishes kind of got pushed back a little bit. So we're looking to complete those, repair and paint the soffits and fascia board. Anyone who's walked past the courthouse can tell that it needs a little bit of TLC and some paint, so we're going in to make those repairs. Also included is a window replacement, cleaning HVAC ductwork, counter upgrade, and then paint and carpet that's totaling approximately $418,000. ADA improvements, again, this was based upon the study completed by EMG, which would, at various buildings, additional handicap parking spaces, modification of ramps and railings, modifications of restrooms, including partitions, as well as the installation of a chairlift in the courthouse annex office. Also, interior repairs and upfits. Again, based upon the EMG study, there are some electrical panels in the courthouse that they are recommending to replace, paint and carpet in the district attorney's office, as well as paint and carpet in the BHM library, as well as a renovation to the farm services kitchen. Based upon budgetary numbers, and again, these are budgetary numbers, that sums up to $575,000. Understanding that that's the amount that was appropriated. My questions, this list was based upon direction that I'd received from the board previously, so that totals to $575,000. Being the engineer that I am, I've always asked for contingency, so there is a contingency of $57,500. That, I'm asking for direction from you, how you would like to do that. If you would like to pull that contingency, and the manager can speak more to where the contingency is coming from, but I believe your budget had a little bit more set aside in contingency this year, and it was just a matter of how those funds would be spent. So,
Mr. Brown.
Christina, how long is it going to take to complete this project?
which project?
The whole.
The goal is always to have it completed by June 30th, to complete it in one fiscal year.
Okay.
That's, I believe, the intent, because next fiscal year there will be additional funds available. So the goal is to complete that by the end of this fiscal year.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Mr. Dethridge.
I'm curious as to
Yes.
how do you plan to get out the word to all the private and public contractors in Beaufort County?
We have a purchasing agent that we write the RFQs. It depends on the amount of the contract, whether you follow a formal or an informal process. Our purchasing agent has a list of contractors that they're contacted. The maintenance staff also, if it's an informal bid, contact the contractors.
Are the contractors from, a lot of them from Beaufort County?
We try to utilize contractors from Beaufort County.
Okay. I had heard from, I just heard tonight how much this building costs. It was $1.1 million and some change, and I've talked to some contractors in Beaufort County over the last year, and they didn't get any calls.
It was publicly advertised in the paper. So we try to utilize contractors from Beaufort County. However, one of the limitations for this particular project was the dollar amount of the project. So when you're advertising for a general contractor, you're not necessarily going after the smaller specialty type contractors.
Why? Why not?
Because we contract through the general contractors, through the GC. So then the GC would be the person that selects those subcontractors.
They don't do the work, they sub it out.
Yeah. Who do you have in line to be the general contractor on this project?
First of all, there are multiple projects, and I can assure you I have no one in line to be the general contractor on
So
this
you're going to handle
project.
this? I mean, we're going to handle this in Beaufort County?
We will submit bids and proposals for all of this work. But this is not a single single contract. Now,
I
it is
get that.
It is possible that the courthouse may be bid as a GC because you're looking at a larger dollar amount, so you gain efficiencies by having a general contractor in, and they are able to schedule and coordinate between multiple trades.
Well, I would suggest if we have a purchasing manager now, that purchasing manager do a little legwork and get the word out to the contractors in this area, be they fully contracted, have contractor's license, or just people that do carpet, painting. Because I would love to see the Beaufort County people get the work as much as possible if we're going to be spending this kind of money.
I do not disagree with you. The county has a purchasing policy that has very clear requirements for contractors that do work for Beaufort County. And one of the limiting factors, I'll be honest with you, are the insurance requirements that are required. So based upon the insurance requirements, a lot of your smaller contractors do not qualify.
Thank you.
Commissioner Waters?
On the district attorney's improvements, I'm assuming right now, no one's in that space where the water department used to be?
We are still utilizing that space. There is some vacant space that's not
Okay.
being fully utilized, and that's something that Brian and I have had discussions with Seth, determining exactly what the needs are and how we can incorporate that.
Well, I guess one of the problems he has over there is some people that cannot climb the steps
Yes, sir.
to the second floor.
Yes, sir, and we've had discussions with him regarding that, whether some of his staff could be located downstairs, but also included in this $575,000 is installing a chairlift in that area for the stairs going up.
Okay.
So not only for the general public, but also for his employees that work out of that space.
Thank you.
If you work, if the manager and yourself are working on the DA's office, then why are we spending this money now? Because it could change. You might not need this lift if you move some people where it come ADA compliant. You might not need a lift because the people won't have to go up to the upper room.
The general public, but you still have employees that are working there. And so the for
ADM
ADA,
covered, I got you.
Still have general employees that would need to go to that space.
Commissioner Richards?
Going to what Commissioner Deathridge was getting at, I am getting complaints from contractors that they're having difficulty getting on the contractor list. They have made requests to be put on the list. They're never notified. They aren't. So, my question to purchasing, and they can come back next week and give us some answers to this, is what are you doing for a comprehensive list of people who are interested in doing work with Beaufort County? And it may well be, we were talking about some of these maybe general contractor bids, $400,000, but they certainly can use subs from Beaufort County. Consequently, they need to be on the list. So my question to purchasing is, what are you doing to make sure that everybody is getting treated fairly? And come back next week and answer that, next month and answer.
The second part of this agenda item is dealing, because this is a new revenue stream of $575,000, and the board has made the commitment to improve the county facilities each and every year. I'm requesting that a new full-time position be added. I understand that this is occurring just after a new budget has been approved. However, if adding the additional 1 cent and setting aside the $575,000 was something that was not expected at that time, or else I would have included the position at that time. So I will go ahead and say that. The basis of this is that the Public Works Department currently manages over $29 million with capital projects totaling over $17 million. These capital projects include over 15 individual projects which involve multiple design and engineering firms, as well as multiple funding agencies and multiple contractors. There are also plans to develop a comprehensive solid waste management plan and to renovate numerous collection sites throughout the county. In order to adequately develop, monitor, and manage all of these projects, as well as additional projects in the building maintenance, it is recommended that an Assistant Public Works Director position be created. This position would assist the Public Works Director with all areas of building maintenance, solid waste, and water departments, including developing capital improvement plans, developmental policies, budget control, contractor supervision, personnel issues, and managing capital projects. This position would be capable of analyzing situations and needs and determining the appropriate direction without oversight. A 4-year degree with 10 years' experience in the industry with supervisory experience is desired. It is suggested that this position be classified as a pay grade 33. A vehicle, computer, and cell phone would be required. Funding in fiscal year 2020 would be from a reduction in the part-time salaries fund previously allocated and contingency. Funding in future years would be divided between the general fund, solid waste enterprise fund, and water enterprise fund. It is recommended that $63,468 be allocated within the water fund, general fund, and solid waste fund to provide 8 months of funding for the Assistant Public Works Director position. There's also an additional budget amendment for the new, the telephone, the capital outlay, totaling a total of $25,634, which will be transferred from the Water Department fund balance.
Commissioner Langley?
I saw that you're saying a 4-year degree, but it does not say exactly what degree you're looking for. And so you're not looking exactly for another engineer, but you want someone with some kind of construction management or?
Yes.
Okay. And also with 10 years in the business?
Absolutely, yes, sir. I'm looking for someone who is capable of making decisions, someone who has experience, someone who's worked on capital projects. These projects, such as the $400 and some $1,000 project, those are major projects that have their own lingo, their own language, and someone who has done that before. The Public Works Department of Beaufort County, or the Water Department, Solid Waste, and Building Maintenance, in the past 6 years, there have been a lot of improvements and a lot of investment that have been made in order to improve this county and to improve the services. And I believe a new position is needed in order to make sure that we adequately continue to monitor those funds and to make sure those funds are being spent in the way that they can be.
My last question is this. So is it possible that the person that you hire could have the skills and the education but not had any supervisory experience? Would that disqualify that person?
I would not say disqualify. Again, in the way, and I say the majority of the job descriptions are written, you do an or equal. You have your preference, but then you look at the overall applications that you receive for that particular posting. Because I can tell you, as a person who's managing people and putting applications out, you never know what type of applications that you will get. So I believe in looking at the overall person, their overall history, and determining the best person to fill that position.
And the reason for my question are those who are watching, if in fact this position gets approved, I just want it already clear that exactly what the expectations are, and then those who are really interested in it can apply. So thank you.
Commissioner Brand?
I can only speak for myself, Christina, but I think the board feels the same way I do. I would like to, when you advertise this job,
Yes, sir.
I would like to see it somebody come out of Beaufort County if we can find someone. I think we ought to try extremely hard to make this happen and keep that money in Beaufort County.
I believe there's certain employment issues that go along with that, but I will promise you that I will work hard with our Human Resources Director to make sure that we follow all requirements.
I understand. Thank you.
I got it.
Commissioner Bowie?
Is there any way possible that you can separate this item? Now, your construction, I want to vote for, But a couple of years ago, we put some money in for a part-time position.
Yes, sir.
That position is still here. That person is still working.
Yes, sir.
Now, the reason I'm saying that is, if I'm not going to vote to hire another person, but I will vote for your capital projects.
I understand
Because
that.
at that time, that person was brought on board to help manage construction. Am I
sir.
correct?
Yes, sir, you are correct, but what you'll see in the budget amendment is that we have taken, we're utilizing those funds from that part-time salary to help
Where's the
fund this
part-time
position.
salary? Where's the person?
The person, but the person's hours are what we are working with. A part-time person, the issue that I have, you have a part-time person who's here and who's able to do things, but that part-time person is not continuing from year to year and working and planning
Well,
and.
that's where I'm headed with that. So now, what is that, we're going to advertise this job. Is that going to be the person that we hire? The one that's sitting there that we brought on board to do exactly what you asked them for?
No, sir. The person that we brought on board is someone who's retired and is only working
Well, what is he
part-time.
going to be doing if you bring somebody on to do what he was doing? What is he going to be doing?
His hours would be minimized. There still may be a need for him, especially in this budget year, because again, you're working in the courthouse, we're going to be working after hours, we're going to be working weekends, and we have a maintenance staff currently that consists of 2 technicians, so I can't have them here 8 to 5 as well as providing coverage for the contractors when they're working third shifts and working on the weekends.
Is there a way you can separate these items?
Absolutely, they're separate budget amendments. Each budget amendment can
Thank
be
you.
budgeted on separately.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Richardson.
I have a question. The proposed job, are you saying that a 4-year degree is mandatory?
No, sir, I'm saying it's preferred.
Well, I think without question, you've got so many things going on with the putting in a new meter system and overseeing that and the, hydraulics, if we get that set up, and it's just a lot, and not counting the jail, there's just a lot of things going on, a lot of catching up to do. Any other discussion?
Are we going to vote or something on this?
Yes.
Commissioner Waters, yeah.
My comment is, when you look at the revenue stream that we have with our water department and our solid waste, it's a little over 10 million. My preference would be that that'd be expense between those 2 enterprises, and it be based on the revenue stream. So instead of following what you've got as a recommendation, it would be plus or minus 70% on the water enterprise and then 30% on the solid waste. We've got a lot of construction, a lot of things going on in the water and things that we want to do on the solid waste, and we just don't have the personnel to do it with. And we're not getting it done with everything else that's on there. And we've had one public comment tonight that's already talked about the solid waste, and that's a constant issue, and we don't have enough personnel to police those 2. So I will support it if we allocate the cost between those 2 enterprises.
I will defer to the finance officer, but I believe that is possible with the contingency that's available in each enterprise fund.
It's possible in the water fund for solid waste, we would probably be going into fund balance appropriated or reduce the amount that we had budgeted for debt service for the convenience site work.
We're looking at a budget for 8 months?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, take us through June.
That shouldn't be a problem then.
No, sir.
Stan, did you have another question?
I'm waiting for the motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to make the first motion. This is to approve the facility improvements capital project budget of $575,000.
Second.
Discussion.
Actually, it's 632.5.
My motion is 575.
Yes. Recently, just a few moments ago, I heard Commissioner Richardson ask that the purchasing manager tell all of us, commissioners and people in Beaufort County, what are we going to do to try to do everything we can to notify the people in Beaufort County, be they vendors or contractors, of this process and how they can become involved, whether it be make a bid or get the proper insurance. I'm adding that. And it kind of fell on deaf ears. Is that something that's going to come back before this board next month or not? I'm just curious. Because I'm not going to vote for this if we don't have any better transparency on this issue.
Brian.
There we go. To speak to the purchasing piece, we follow the state purchasing guidelines as well as the Beaufort County purchasing policy. That requires us to advertise certain items based on dollar amount. And that goes in the paper. It also goes, if they're larger dollar amounts, it goes under the state ITS system, which puts out, it's the interactive purchasing system where contractors can register with the state of North Carolina. There is a minority vendor process that goes through that sends that to them. We advertise in the Washington Daily News. Beyond, hand-holding someone, which we cannot do, we've got to be, as Commissioner Richardson said, as fair as we can to everybody, which means we've got to put it out there, and I can't just call you and say you need to submit a bid on this. We've got to put it out there for everybody to see it, and we do that the best we can. If we have folks that call us and say, I'd like to be on a vendor list, we try to send those out and let folks know. But we do follow the purchasing policy that is set up and approved by this board. So we're doing that, and it concerns me when people say we're not doing something fairly. We are doing something as fairly as we can.
Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I asked the question a particular way because I know all of the stuff that the manager just went through and how it applies. And what I asked for was for whatever official that the manager wants to use to come before us at the next meeting, and let's talk about how we go about making sure that people are fairly treated. Because I'm getting complaints about having trouble getting on list. And a lot of people look at list as being the answer, but there's a lot more to this than just that. And that's why I asked for a general discussion so that all commissioners and the purchasing people can be aware of how we can all be on the same page about how we're doing things to make so that when people come to me and say, I made a request back and I've tried to get to where I can get notices of county bids, things like that, and it's not happening. Well, let's talk about the exact procedures at the meeting next month as to how we do this. Then all of us will be able to inform people who make request of us what they should be doing in order to be in line.
Brian, do you have anything else? You good? Wait a minute, Mr. Brown.
It's all right.
Go ahead.
Well, I see what Commissioner Richardson is hitting at, and it's about informing the public. One way we could do it is to have workshops and to bring in anybody that wants to come and inform them as to how this process works. Because a lot of people are in the dark. They don't do this kind of bidding. We don't have a lot of government work in Beaufort County, and it might be beneficial to these people not only get Beaufort County work, but get work in other counties. It's a very complicated process to file here, get on this bid list, make sure you take one publication, and if you don't do all that, you're not going to know. So I'm thinking there's a better way to do this, and maybe we can brainstorm through a workshop, talk about it, get into it deeply, and delve down and figure out how to do it, because I'm getting a lot of complaints.
Education is always a good thing.
It is a wonderful thing.
And again, our department, I do not want to speak for the purchasing agent, but obviously Public Works puts out a lot of, needs to have a lot of requests for pricing and that type of thing. There's definitely an education, because one of the struggles that I have on my side is getting multiple proposals from contractors to do work, because oftentimes our projects are not that large. So when you contact someone numerous times to give you proposals, because that's what our purchasing policy requires, is that it's always desired that you get multiple proposals so that you have justification for your expense. Contractors do not want to continue to provide you prices if there's always their competitor that's beating them out. So then suddenly we're in the position where we can't get three quotes and that type of thing. So it's definitely it's not a perfect system, but again, we are bound with what we can and cannot do by policy and by statute.
Understandable, but as long as the public knows or has an understanding of what that statute is and the process.
Again, I'm all for education, and I believe that's something that we can work jointly with the purchasing department to put in place in the future.
It's going to be some work, but I think it would be good. At least it would show a good bit of transparency.
Well, we have transparency.
I know, but the public doesn't see that.
I mean, we have transparency. We have a policy in place, a policy that's been presented to the board, that's been reviewed and approved. So, again, we, of the two parties involved versus government versus private industry, we have restrictions that we have to abide by. Private industry, oftentimes, if it's a smaller business, then they do not have as many policies and procedures. But for what we do, we have guidelines, so we try to follow those.
But it would be good to get the guidelines out there and understanding how it all works, then the public could act accordingly.
Yes, sir. Again, I think education is a good thing, and I think our purchasing agent will be happy to assist with that.
Well, I think we need more than just a purchasing agent. We need to have a full force. Everybody should be all hands on deck. Because we're spending a lot of money in Beaufort County, a whole lot of money.
Yes, sir, we are.
And we need to do it in a fair way, and a way where we can save money whenever possible. And I think that's economic development. It's better to give somebody in this county who's qualified the job rather than to go outside the county and pay more.
I do not disagree with you. I live in this county. I work in this county. I do not disagree with you. Again, we are bound by our purchasing policy.
I understand, but I want us to all understand it, because at times the county is hid behind that, and I want us to all understand what those parameters are. Thanks.
Commissioner Waters.
The Small Business Center at Beaufort Community College teaches a course, and they have classes from time to time, seminars, and that covers, 4 counties or 5 counties? To me, that's where we need to send these people. We've already got education going on.
I disagree.
Well, I mean, you can disagree, but that's where the education is.
Not really.
Yeah.
There's some areas where the community college is deficient, and we need to understand that.
Well,
and that may be one of them. I can tell you right now, there's some areas that I know firsthand that they don't understand that well, and that should not be the end-all, be-all for educating our public. If it's going to be Beaufort County business, I think Beaufort County would be better to educate the public than the community college. They don't understand
in your
our
previous
business.
comment, you said that not only would it allow them, teach them how to do it in Beaufort County, but other counties. The community college covers 4 counties, so that would be a better economic driver for those individuals. That opens the door for 4 counties on it. So I call a question on the vote.
Brian, do you have a comment?
Just a clarification for Commissioner Waters. Your motion was 575. In that motion, are you including a 10% contingency, so you want us to back down the projects, or are you wanting us to exclude the contingency?
Exclude the contingency, and then as you get into the projects, then come back and we'll use the contingency fund that was set up. And if I remember that number, it was 200,000. So.
Your motion is the 575,000.
Yes.
And there's a second.
There's a second.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come back and get 200,000.
Ready to vote? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2, motion passes. Is there a second?
Second.
I'd be more than glad to vote for this, and I maybe even talk Hood to vote for it.
I doubt it.
But we are awash in employees in Beaufort County. Commissioner Waters corrected me and said since I've been gone off this board, we really haven't increased by 27%. We've only increased by about 18 or 19%. But we haven't grown by 18 or 19% in the last 4 years. We might have grown by 0.5%. So we're awash in employees. But I'll vote for this if we can cut 2 employees of equal or greater pay. If we can do that, I'll vote for it. And if we can do that every time we hire somebody new, that would be a good thing. With somebody we really need bad, we got to have these people in order to be more efficient. We cut the people that aren't efficient. I'll be more than glad to do that. I'll vote for it every time. I'll vote for this. So cut 2 people. Promise to cut 2 people. I'll vote for it.
Any more discussion? Commissioner Waters.
All right. Mr. Chairman, if the commissioner that made the motion will say that the cost will be borne by the 2 enterprises, the water and solid waste, then I'll support that.
Dan, which one are you talking to?
I said motion. I don't think
Mike.
No, the person that made the motion, I can't remember,
Who's me?
Commissioner Langley.
Okay.
Please repeat your motion.
Your friendly amendment to my motion, I do not have a problem with that. Is that something, Christina, that would cause you problems?
No, sir.
Okay, I didn't think it would, but I'm good with that. So I make the motion that we approve the position contingent upon the funding coming from the 2 enterprise funds.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? Okay, good.
Christina, I guess Anita could answer this better, but is the 2 enterprise funds able to handle that cost?
Yes, sir. She answered that previously.
Okay, all right, I'm good with it then.
Any more discussion? Commissioner Richards.
I believe we were in here adjusting the budget on one of these enterprise funds a couple of months ago. So, I'm not sure who's keeping the books and who's doing the numbers, but there's something that's not working out for me and my feeble brain on this. But what I want to say is I can support what Commissioner Deathridge talked about doing, and that is you can get another employee. I'll vote for it if we can find 2 employees that we can get rid of. We're in a county with a declining population and an increasing number of government employees, and I really think that requires some thought.
Commissioner Brand.
Just to take off on what Commissioner Richardson has said, we're declining in population, that's very true. But what we're doing now, the construction that we're doing here in Beaufort County and the water department, schools, things of that nature, that's what brings people to Beaufort County. And so I think all these, it might cost some money, but it's important that we have these things done so we can attract businesses and people to move here to Beaufort County.
Mr. Chairman, may I go?
Booth, you got a question?
I don't agree with what Stan and Hood said about it. You hire 1 person and lay off 2. I just don't agree with that. But the reason that I can't vote for this is because we're just 30 days out of the budget. 2 years ago, we hired a person to do exactly what you asked him to do, and it was for 1 year, and they've been here 2 years. But if it passes, and I commend you, you're doing a very, very good job. I will commend you. You're doing a great job in this county and for us and our citizens. But I just can't see where this person is needed.
Commissioner Jessers.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I really love the movie Field of Dreams. It was a great movie. It was about 25 years ago. I saw it recently. They really looked young. Kevin Costner was a lot younger then. But one of the greatest line from that movie is build it and they will come. And I've been in government for off and on for over 20-something years, and I'm hearing this build it and they will come. And I've been hearing that for a lot of years, and guess what? They haven't come. So at some point, we have got to start cutting in this county and not spend, outrageously spend. Now, I'll vote against it, and I hope somebody else on this board besides Mr. Booth will find a way to vote against it too.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 4-3. Motion passes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is regarding, back to the Beaufort County Water Department. I'm requesting authorization to apply for grant funding. The North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality offers funding opportunities for asset inventory management plans for utility systems. Grants are limited to $150,000 over a period of 3 years to the same local government. Beaufort County requests authorization to apply for this funding for the next funding cycles. Beaufort County Water Department previously applied for this funding. We were approved to do that in 2016, but funding was not awarded. Again, this is not committing Beaufort County to accepting any proposal that is received from the Department of Environmental Quality. This is just giving us the approval to submit the application.
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Oh, yeah, there's discussion. Number one, what is an asset management plan?
The asset, would be tied into the capital improvements plan. It is looking at our assets, what we currently have, what the value is when they were installed, when they need to be replaced, and planning for the future. Again, this is something that Department of Environmental Quality, Water Infrastructure is very strongly encourages all systems to do. It's information that we need to also help us prepare other plans. There are new requirements that are coming from the federal government requiring emergency response plans. And again, this is information that would be obtained and submitted for all of the many regulatory plans that you're required to submit.
But what would the plan look like when it's finished? I mean, what will it say? An example.
It depends right now. It would be a listing of all of our pumps, all of our trains, again, an inventory list, and then also that's used to start the plans for the capital improvement plan. It's all part of the process. And again, this is things that Beaufort County Water System needs, and trying to get grant funds to be allocated to Beaufort County in lieu of being allocated to other places in the state.
Who will do the plan?
Withers and Ravenel is looking now because they would utilize the information that they get from the hydraulic model. Hoping, and based upon the scoring, again, because the information is developed from the hydraulic model, we would score higher.
Well, you know, what I'm hearing here is a little bit puzzling to me, having managed a few things myself. We need more help. We need more employees. We got more to do than we can get done. We need more programs. We need more programs that are going to produce things that are going to show us that we need more and more and more and more. This thing is like a snowball.
Our department is like a snowball. Our water system is a huge living and breathing almost organism. I mean, it is changing constantly, and not only is the water system changing, but the requirements that that our operators are required to fulfill are changing almost daily. It's not exactly daily, but we are constantly getting new requirements from either the state regulators or from the federal regulators. And I'm trying to put our department in the position so that we have the tools that we need to respond to those requirements. And if, heaven forbid, something would ever happen to our water system, then we have these tools in place and to help us to identify an issue, or also to help us to prevent something from happening. So these are all things, the requirements that our operators, which by the way, each individual operator is criminally responsible for the operation of our water system. So these are all tools that we're putting in place and plans that we're putting in place to protect the water system customers.
But we have a water system that's not like a centralized water system where we have one source of water, which a lot of people have. This is a system that is spread out and draped across the whole county. You can easily isolate this system down into about 10 or 15 parts that I can think of if you have to, if there were a disaster of some kind. The only thing that's going to take out our water system is going to be an atomic bomb that gets the whole county. So what I'm seeing, where are the people going to come from that are going to massage all of these computer programs and all of these reports and all of this stuff? We don't have the staff to do these things. It's more and more, and I can't support it.
I appreciate that, but I respectfully disagree with you on the atomic bomb. There are any type of water system, you have areas that if a person with the appropriate knowledge can do harm to a water system. And the system being spread out over a county system and not being centralized, that just makes it a more difficult system to be able to manage. So, and again, this is going back, it's not committing us to anything in the future, but again, many workshops in the past, the commissioners have always said to research and to proceed with any avenues possible in order to potentially bring grant funding into Beaufort County. So that's what I'm doing.
Commissioner Waters.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the 7 district resolutions applying for a grant. Yes.
Is there a second?
Okay, I'll second.
Yeah, you already did.
Or-
We just discussed it.
Well,
Okay.
the chairman and I.
We thought, yeah. Any more discussion? Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed? 5-2, motion passes.
Thank you.
Martin? It's been so long, I forgot about that issue.
Good evening again, Commissioners and Mr. Chairman. I've been working with the Economic Development Partnership of North Carolina and Project Mojo over the last 2 months in terms of the project itself, looking to increase and look at what they could get from the state by committing to a 5-year program. The project basically over the 5 years would create 186 jobs and looking at about $16.7 million of investment. In response to this, the state has put together an incentive package estimated about $2.3 million. The primary piece of that being a $1.2 million job development investment grant, which would be over a 12-year period. As I've previously said, this project has been in business for 14 years, and they produce motor yachts between 30 and 50 feet. They're basically looking to relocate from the northeast to reduce their costs of doing business, but also to better serve their markets in the southeast and down in Florida. The new facility, as I say, would need to be cost competitive. It is the competition is South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia, and Mexico. And I think they're looking for a location that we very much fulfill, an access to education, such as at ECU, a skilled labor force in this area, particularly in terms of boat building, proximity to an airport, such as the Pitt Greenville Airport, and then access to the coast and employment opportunities for spouses. The employment, as I said, is 186, and they're looking at an average salary of $42,387, which is about $5,000 more than the county average. So that'd be very useful for us. As I said, there's a boat building cluster here. Currently we have 8 boat builders. They employ about 300 people. And obviously the suppliers are here in terms of sewing for fabrics, metalworking, detailers, electronics, things like that. The estimated Return on this in the first 5 years is about $184,912. This low return on the property tax is primarily due to the fact that a lot of their equipment is in the form of molds and what have you, which have a 3-year depreciation life. So what they're asking for actually is $185,000 of over a 5-year period of a performance grant from us. And as with all the performance grants, it would only be paid out after property taxes have been collected, and the amount paid out would not exceed the property taxes paid in any particular year. The county would disperse the funds as the investment and jobs are created, and basically a disbursement period of 5 years, but then also the jobs would need to be held for another 2.5 years after that period had ended. If jobs are not created, then that part of proportionally, that part of the performance grant would be returned to the county. So I'm requesting that the Beaufort County Board of Commissioners vote that the county manager, myself, and the county attorney work with Project Mojo to provide an estimated $185,000 performance grant over 5 years for the creation of 186 jobs in Beaufort County.
Motion to approve.
Any discussion?
Yeah. So you're saying Beaufort County would need to pony up $185,000 in deferred property taxes? Personal property taxes?
It is called a performance grant because everybody has to pay their property taxes.
Yeah.
So basically what the company would do would be pay their property taxes, and then we would look at the investment and jobs created in that year. If they meet their performance criteria, then we would pay them.
Rebate it back to them.
We can't really use the word rebate. It's a performance grant.
Performance grant, all right. Yeah, but Beaufort County taxpayers would love to get a performance grant that people that have lived here for years and years and years and worked hard and pay taxes, and it goes to these people from the Northeast.
Hopefully, as you've been saying, the 186 jobs would go to people in the county. We do have a cluster of boat builders here. Most of those people do work in the county, so I believe a lot of the jobs would occur to people here in the county. So hopefully that would give them jobs to pay their taxes.
Any more discussion? All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, 6-1.
Thank you.
Bobby Parker.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm here, I did some property tax cases for the Rich Company. The Property Tax Commissioners wants to see can we settle these before they get to the property tax. So I gave you a list of what that I came up with, what we started with, what the revaluation values was, and I made a statement here. I need your decision because there was a wide gap between what Rich asked for and what we, the county, had gave them. So you have my list, and if you've got to think about if we go to the Property Tax Commission, we might lose it all. We might say where we are. When you get there, you don't know how the commissioners are going to vote that day. So sometimes they favor the taxpayer, sometimes they vote with the county. So I think Mr. David Francisco can tell you we've run into this before. So
Commissioner Langley.
Bobby, you feel that the numbers that you have given us are accurate and fair?
I worked with those numbers that I came up with very hard and made some adjustments on it. The one across the Midtown Shopping is about half of what the value is on the shopping center across the street. They did not use that number when They were wanting me to adjust it. They were using the piece of land that was right next to the shopping center, which is vacant land, and the old shopping center on the other side of them. So I went across the street and used the numbers they had across the street. So.
And I realize what you said. You said that it could go against us and then not have to pay anything at all, but I really and truly don't believe it'll go that way. But my thoughts are that I think if it needs to go to the Property Tax Commission, then that's what we need to do.
I have no objection to that. I think that it might be a wise decision. I was just trying to come up with something. Even after I offered this, they thought I would do better, so this is where I am.
Commissioner Richardson.
Well, yeah, I looked at the numbers. I don't have a problem with them. I think it's a good way to settle this when you consider a lawyer's time, your time, everybody else's time, the possibility of loss. The numbers look fair to me as a way to settle this. They're fairly close to what we said they were to begin with, so we're really not giving away a lot. If it was some big differences, I would have a problem, but I think it's a fair settlement, and I can support it.
It's not just something I worked many hours on this, so trying to come up with something to be fair.
Do we have a motion?
Motion
Oh, yeah,
to
quick.
approve.
Wait.
Motion to approve.
The proposal. Motion to approve the proposal for settlement.
He did a motion. I second.
You didn't do it. You didn't know about it. No.
Commissioner Waters.
Bobby, my only comment was the amount of money you're talking about to settle as a percentage of the revaluation, they were all pretty much in line except on the CVS. That was the only one that was like 3 percentage points less, but
That's the one I had more problem with than anything else.
is that right?
Yeah.
You know, if you look at the $1,950,000, that's pretty much in line with your final numbers to offer on the other 3 properties, and that was the only number I thought might could be adjusted a little bit, but I defer to you on that number.
I can look back at this again, any of them that you...
Well, no, that was the only one that raised a question when I did it.
Right.
But you have no problems with the number. You've got it here in the right-hand column.
I do not.
Okay. Thank you.
Bobby,
Mr. Deathridge.
this was entertained for the Board of Equalization review, not last year, but year before last, right?
18, yes.
Okay, 18.
I mean, no,
I didn't remember this one.
18.
Okay, and you feel good about these numbers? They really aren't that different. They're about 6% difference between what the board decided and what you kind of settled with or kind of have an agreement on. About, am I seeing that right, about 6%?
Right, I got the board's decision, and I got what I worked over and tried to do all I could to make sure that if we didn't have to go to the Property Tax Commission, it is costly. We never know what their decision is going to be. Of course, that's a chance we take on anything, so.
And I hate to rehash all this, but I need to since I've got to vote now and I wasn't there to begin with. Are you alluding to the fact that they wanted much less than what you're offering now? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
We didn't even come close.
It was significantly less, I bet. Yeah. Okay. That's all I need.
Time to vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. Motion passes.
Thank you, John.
Mr. Francisco.
Commissioners, you have...
Mr. Francisco, let me state that I'm not going to be able to vote on this because the offerer is a client of mine, so I'd rather not vote on it because he's going to hire me to do work on it if he buys it. So, thank you.
You have before you 4 offers for property that the county acquired by foreclosure. They are contiguous on Pantigga Road, Belhaven. be offers of $50 each for each of those. And this, of course, will be advertised. If you approve this offer will be advertised in the Daily News and is subject to upset bid. And if it's not, we've got the property back on the tax rolls. Right now, it's not.
Commissioner Brown.
Motion to approve all 4 properties.
Mr. Waters. Any discussion? And a vote. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 6. No, 0. Motion passes.
6.
Yeah, he couldn't vote.
That's right.
7 o'clock hour, we're going to take a short recess. Thank you. We're back from recess. Christina, if you'll update us on the detention center locking upgrade project.
Yes, Commissioner. If you recall, last month, we awarded a contract to Montgomery Technology Systems. Since that time, the contract has been signed. The certificate of insurance has also been received. Staff has spoken with Montgomery Technology Systems numerous times in the past 4 weeks discussing the project. I've also spoken with Department of Health and Human Services concerning the project. If you recall, last month we had discussion about what type of drawings would be required by Department of Health and Human Services for their submittal process. The architect that will be assigned this project was out of the office for an extended period of time. He did return today. So an update to what's prepared in your agenda is that I did speak with the architect today. He is reviewing the submittal examples that I sent to him, and he believes at this time, while he cannot make a final determination, he believes that the submittal drawings that will be submitted will be sufficient for his use. There will be floor plans with opening numbers and information regarding each specific opening. Currently, MTS is actively preparing submittal documents. The contract allows 10 weeks for the preparation of those submittal documents. So that started on July 9th, so submittals will be due on or before September 17th. So right now, we are in a position of where the contractor is working on the project, but there is not actively workers in place right now.
Commissioner Richardson.
You say there will be 4 plans submitted. Will the 4 plans be changed from what is actually there now?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, as you know, as a reminder, and I think I sent you an email and the manager an email, there's a meeting with the architect while he visited this facility to make his decision. I want to be in that meeting.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. I'm not, as of right now, the Department of Health and Human Services architect doesn't feel that he needs to make a site visit currently. After we submit the documents, then he'll make the determination.
Well, I agree. We are repairing equipment. We are not building something new or changing walls and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, sir. I understand, and we had that discussion today as well. I do have a question, though. Is this an update that you will be requesting on a monthly basis, or is when something, just so that I can prepare each month?
I'll be requesting on a monthly basis.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Me too.
Okay. Well, I can tell you next month. Part of what I'll say is we're still waiting for submittals, but if there are any changes between now and then, I will also provide you an update.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you, Christina. Mr. Alligood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. As you'll recall, at your last meeting, the board voted unanimously to engage a third-party service to review the DNA work that had been done by Ms. Maureen Hickman with Western Carolina University in the Brenda Hamilton case. Ms. Hickman was receptive to that and said she appreciated that extra review. She actually provided me some information on peer review labs that may be appropriate. You'll see those listed in the agenda: the Northeast Wildlife DNA Lab at East Stroudsburg University in Pennsylvania, the California Department of Fish and Wildlife Forensics Lab in California, and then the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Forensics Lab in Ashland, Oregon. It was my understanding from the board that you wanted this to be a third-party review, so I did not reach out to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Forensics Lab in Oregon, just so that we could keep that an arm's length transaction. I have not heard back from either one of those prior yet, but I did hear this afternoon from Aaron Meredith, who is with the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. As we anticipated, they are not allowed to do work outside the state of California. She did recommend 2 additional labs that they worked with. Lab out of UC Davis, veterinary genetic laboratory, and then she also recommended the U.S. Fish and Wildlife National Forensic Lab in Oregon. So again, I'm assuming the board doesn't want to deal with U.S. Fish and Wildlife on this, so that would be my next to reach out as well to UC Davis to see if they are interested. You'll see it further down in the agenda item. Commissioner Richardson also provided 2 points of contact. One was Xavier Monzon, who is a biology professor at Pepperdine in California. I've reached out to him and sent him the same information and asked for a reply. I have not heard back yet. And then Dr. Fred Whitehurst, who is a retired attorney and special supervisory special agent for the FBI Crime Lab, actually lives in Bethel, according to Commissioner Richardson. Had a conversation with him, I think, at the Bellhaven Rotary Club where he did a presentation. I have not reached out to him. Commissioner Richardson had reached out to him, and it's my understanding that he said he'd be glad to consult or have a telephone conversation at no cost. But this is where we kind of stand right now, and just wanted to get some direction from the board. Our intent is to continue to reach out and seek that third-party review and just see where the board wants to go, if you have any particular direction for us on that.
Commissioner Richardson?
Mr. Chairman, in order to get our project moving, because it's a bit unusual structure-wise, in this kind of a death, there's not really any federal agency that you can go to and say, you have jurisdiction to solve this problem for us, or state agency, or county agency insofar as that goes, although the lead agency here would be the Sheriff's Department. What I would like to do is to make a motion, which you guys can certainly jump on and we'll change it, and that is that the board appoint a 3-person committee that would have the cooperation of all of the county agencies and anybody else that we can get to help us to pursue this particular matter. Because there's a lack of structure, I think that's why we need to do this, because it's going to take some independent action to make things move. The Hamilton family and a lot of citizens of Beaufort County deserve a final answer to this. And I'm fully aware that there may not be a final answer. We have to be aware of that too. But we still need to pursue it. There's a lot of concern among people in the county that this has happened once. We don't know what really happened, and if it involves wild animals, it could happen again. So the public wants an answer to this too. So that's my motion.
We got a second? Okay. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend and make a motion that Commissioner Richardson chair that committee.
Wait till I do this one and then do it.
You ready? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, 7-0, motion passes. Gary, what motion would you like to make?
Make a motion that Commissioner Richardson chair that committee, and he select the ones that, the other 2 that he wants on that committee. That's my motion.
Discussion.
With all due respect, Commissioner Brin, I would like for the board or someone to volunteer. I wouldn't want to necessarily select. This is in Commissioner Waters' neighborhood. I think he should probably serve on it. And then after that, if the chairman wants to serve, that's fine. That would take care of it.
Do we need another motion?
I make a motion that those are the 3.
You got a second? Discussion?
I guess I need to do the mic. I make a motion that the 3 said names be the committee.
I second that motion.
All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0, motion passed.
Would you guys let me know when you can meet, and I can meet anytime that you can meet?
Commissioner Waters.
Mr. Chairman, before we leave this item, I wonder if we have an update from the Sheriff's Department. Chief Rose, has any of the items that we talked about doing tests, the bone fragments and the hair, has that been sent to another lab, or?
It hasn't been sent off yet. There's a purchase order that's just been done for that process. I don't know the name here of the lab that we have, but I can get that to you in email. But we are ready to engage with someone to look at the hair and fibers that were found. We're just waiting on the purchase order to come back.
Thank you.
Well,
Brian, you ready to talk about the cooperage, acreage?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, as you recall, on April the 1st, the board voted unanimously to proceed with the disposal of the cooperage tract in Bellhaven under the offer to purchase an upset bid process. At that time, there was some discussion with the board or amongst the board about a clawback provision. They wanted to make sure that that the property wasn't flipped or the property wasn't sat on, and that the developer moved forward with it. In discussions with Tyler Mulligan, who is an attorney with UNC School of Government who specializes in economic development, he says that under case law, which is Pewitt versus Gaston County, you're not allowed to put restrictions on a piece of property that you are selling under the upset bid process. Essentially, you are declaring that piece of property surplus, and you can't put restrictions on it if you're going to do it under an upset bid process. It has to be free and clear. Whoever turns out on the top, turns out on the top, and you can't have any control over it. There is an opportunity to look at it and go under the Economic Development Statute, which is 158.7.1. In that process, there's some requirements under the statute that require you to do a fair market appraisal of the property. That is the price that is set at the minimum. You can negotiate with the developer, but that has to be the minimum price. And there has to be some job information provided relating to that. In conversations with the developer, he is not necessarily interested in going that process. He would rather do it under the upset bid process. The problem we run into is our direction from you was to look at the clawback provision. Based on that case law, if you are okay with not putting any restrictions on that property and putting it up for sale under the upset bid process, negotiated in the upset bid, he is willing to make an offer on that piece of property, and then we'll let it run through the upset bid process. Of course, that upset bid process is what sets the market value, and that's the piece under statute. The one issue that we still are grappling with is the brownfields agreement. The state is still dragging their feet on that. I will tell you that the gentleman, Sam Watson, who had been assigned to that project about 2 years ago, sent me an email. I've been following up with him, leaving him messages. He sent me an email Friday that said he had, due to changes in work and caseload changes, he was no longer on that job and had been transferred to someone else. So I am back at square one and having a conversation with the new person. She sent me an email, and I tried calling and following up with her today and only got her voicemail. So the issue with that is, if you were a developer, if I were a developer, I don't know that I would want to purchase a piece of property without completely understanding what that brownfield agreement was and what restrictions may be put on that. Based on our earlier conversations with him, when I say earlier, I mean 2 years ago when we had this conversation with him, there's not a tremendous amount of issue with the property. It's mostly fertilizer, and because they had looked at it a long time ago and actually had proposed what's called natural attenuation, which just means you let nature take its course and take up the fertilizer that was out there that was spilled in excess. So I don't think there are a whole lot of restrictions that would be put on there. There is some areas where they probably don't want them digging. But the state would negotiate. Essentially what happens in the brownfields process is the state puts together essentially a boilerplate agreement, and they send it to the county, and we get to negotiate with them on what we would agree to under that and what they would accept. And so it's kind of a back and forth, but we've got to get that agreement first. They did say that if you had a developer or anyone who was interested in the property, with the county's consent, they could be a part of those negotiations, which you would probably want to do that if they want to be a part of it, if they're planning on purchasing it. But the county is the one that's ultimately responsible for that, for negotiating that agreement. And if the developer bought it prior to that agreement being negotiated, they would have to sign an agreement that said, I understand that there's a brownfields agreement in process on this, and whatever comes out of that, I agree to abide by. So I guess my reason for putting it on there tonight is there's a difference in what we originally talked about back in April. I wanted you to know that. I wanted to seek the board's direction on whether you were okay with selling it, putting in under an upset bid process, which would remove any restrictions you may have had, any clawback restrictions you may have had, and then seeing where we go from there. Again, we are working with the state to try to get that brownfields agreement. But if you could be in the developer situation, I don't know that I'd do anything until I had a good feeling for what that would be. But we can't do anything and move forward without the board letting us know whether you're okay with pulling those restrictions.
Commissioner Richardson?
I don't have a problem with anything that the manager said. I don't mind selling it under the upset bid process. The person that's negotiating is a former client of mine, so I don't have a conflict of interest. But by the same token, the brownfields thing is important, as the manager alluded to. I had a client who wanted to do something on a piece of property. They looked at the brownfields agreement, and they had permission to put apartments on it, but they didn't have permission to put another building on it, slab on grade. So they ran into problems, and that's why you really want to be careful, and you want to negotiate as broad a brownfield agreement as you can get. I don't understand why the state's dragging its feet, but that's another branch of government which moves incredibly slow. So I can support the proposal for the upset bid process because it gets the property back back on tax maps, and it gets the property developed in some fashion.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
And just as a follow-up, the town of Belhaven has done some work on the property regarding zoning, and is my understanding is either through that process or very close to finalizing that process, because it was not zoned appropriately, I think, for what they were looking for, and they've gone through that process now.
Commissioner Brown?
I second Commissioner Hood's recommendation.
Any more discussion? Commissioner Waters?
If I understood your comments, Brian, the developer could participate in a meeting with us, with the county, in trying to help negotiate an agreement.
They could.
By describing the kind of development that they're trying to pursue.
Yes, sir, they could. And like I say, ultimately, it's the county's decision because the county has the property, and the brownfields folks said that they would only negotiate with the county, but they were certainly okay with a developer sitting there saying, well, this is what I want to do, and this might be an issue, and working through the negotiations.
Do you think there's a chance that would encourage them to speed up a little bit if the developer went along?
Well, we're still waiting on the boilerplate agreement, and then we get to negotiate it. For the last year, we've been telling them that we have somebody who's interested in buying it, so I'm not sure that's going to help them anymore.
Commissioner Richardson?
I have one question. I don't think we should sell the property beyond Shoemake Creek. Is that what we're talking about, selling and letting Shoemake Creek be the boundary line?
Yes, sir. Essentially, the property that we're talking about is the original Cooperage piece, and not what we call, what's been named the Tillman Tract, which was donated to the county, which is north of the creek, or I'm sorry, not north, east of the creek. So yes, just that piece of property.
Any more discussion? All those, Nope.
Ready to pay.
You ready to vote? Okay. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. 7-0. Pass, motion passes. Tax bill delivery. Commissioner Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The only question I have for the tax assessor is when are the bills going out?
I didn't want to yell at you tonight. I think I gave you this last month that we would start working on them probably today. We are finishing up some things we have to do. I'm going to cut land records off tomorrow, so they will end their day tomorrow night, and everything in Farragut will move forward from the land records. And it's a process that now we go through Farragut to get all our data, all of our reports run. We don't have the server that we used to have here where we could do it and where we were every day. So I hope by the middle of the week, we will be planning to send our data to South Data for maybe printing either over the weekend or sometime next week. It's just going on what kind of problems we have. But it's all guesswork right now.
Thank you very much.
Sir, thank you.
Okay, flood map update. Commissioner Richardson.
Well, I'm going to hand this to the manager, which is what I've been doing. Tell people we still got $5 million in surplus flood premiums that's being paid in Beaufort County that don't need to be paid, and there's nobody standing in the way of this but FEMA for all of the great things that they say they do for us. They're not doing very much for us. I got one client that's paying $4,000 a year, and as soon as these maps comes out, he's paying $0. So this is a big deal for the people of the county. Mr. Chairman, when do you think this is going to happen?
I think it's going to happen.
I'm sorry.
I don't have any additional information from FEMA. They've given us the same timeline they gave us before.
Well, this is getting to rub a little raw as far as I'm concerned because it's costing people money. It's a government agency. The 2013 is when we were supposed to have had these maps. So, they're only 6 years late.
Jail referendum, Vice Chair Jerry Langley.
The only thing I'm trying to do is just keep it out in front of you. I mean, we need to make a decision about if, in fact, we have a referendum, and the referendum is approved, or if a lawsuit comes out of the judge ruling in the plaintiff's favor. I'm just trying to push this along so that you can say that we have been actively doing something so that we can stop the payout of the money. So I'm just saying, I said this last month, but I think everything I say is falling on deaf ears, but that's okay. I'm used to some folks not listening to me. I can live with that, but I will continue to put it out there, but we need to make a decision as to where it is going to be.
Commissioner Richardson.
Okay, I have some good news on the jail situation. Things are not as dark and bleak and bad as they look like they are. We are making progress through applying management to the whole situation of prisoners in jail. There is something that's going to come out in the next few weeks that has to do with changing the requirements for bonding of prisoners, and is going to let more nonviolent prisoners out into the public than what we've had in the past. So we certainly don't want those, the guys that are going to harm people that are violent out in public. So that's going to lighten the load in the jail. The district attorney is doing a great job of getting rid of the long-term cases. We've got 13 cases in jail right now. We had 18 3 months ago. He's worked it down to 13. We have 13 right now that have been in jail for anywhere from 6 months to 3 years, and without a trial date set according to the records. Now, I talked to the district attorney by email today, and he said, well, some of those really have got some dates set. And he is putting his shoulder to the wheel to get the long-termers out, because when you take 13 long-termers out, you have reduced We have 69 prisoners in the county's care on the last report. If you take 13 off of there, you're down to 56. If you can lighten the bonds and get 10 more, you're down to 46. We're having the size of what we need to keep people incarcerated in the jail through a whole lot better management than we've had in the past. And it's a matter, and I'm going to take credit because nobody's going to say, Hood, you did a great job. I'm going to take credit for pushing this, and I'm going to keep right on pushing it because it's saving you $50 a day for every one of those guys. That guy that's been in there since 2016 has cost you $47,000 in jail expenses. So we are making progress, and this problem is going away. I want to thank Commissioner Langley for his public service in keeping this issue in front of the public so that we can be protected should something come up. But this is the first bright spot that I have seen in this in about 2 years. So and there's a lot of other things that can be done too, like working with the mentally ill and people that do need special assistance and to get them out of jail. The whole trend is changing in the whole United States about keeping people locked up that don't need to be locked up. Now, there's plenty of people that do need to be locked up, but just letting people sit over there because somebody doesn't have time to give him a trial is not a legitimate excuse. Thank you.
And Commissioner Richardson, and I will commend you on your bulldog tenacity. I will commend you on that. But at the same token, my perspective on this is not necessarily about population. It's about classification and officer safety. I mean, even if you got it down to 15, you still need to be able to classify people, segregate people correctly, and have it so that the requirements for ambient light and the ventilation system and the exercise, those are the things that are going to come back and bite us. And that is the reason why I'm constantly keeping it out here, because when push comes to shove, I want us to be able to push back a little bit and not just roll over and do whatever a federal or state judge tells us to do, because when they tell us to do things, they go above and beyond.
Mr. Booth, you want to talk about Sheriff's Office FTEs?
Yes. First, let me put the disclaimer out there. This is not about controlling the sheriff. I think our chief do a remarkable job with the facilities and the funds that he has. But after we passed the budget, I learned that through some information that because we passed the budget, it don't mean that the money can be spent where we wanted it to go. We're not trying, I'm not trying, and we'll never try to control the sheriff's office. I'm not a sheriff, I'm just a county commissioner. But what I was trying to do is put it in there to see that, and let me put this out there. Charlie has not done anything, Chief Rose has not done anything out of the norm to my ability. I have highly respect for what he has done, but as it stands right now, the money that we have put out there, if my interpretations are correct, if we say buy 10 cars, the money is allocated for 10 cars, Chief could hire 5 men if he wanted to. And if I'm wrong, correct me. And he has never, I'm saying it again, because all I heard since the agenda went out, we're trying to control the sheriff's office. That is just as far from the truth as from earth to hell. But these are the things I'm trying to do is control us. So the things that we do as a county commissioner, that we will be protected for the things that we do. And that's open for discussion, if anybody have any.
Commissioner Richardson?
Commissioner, could you tell us what you're proposing? I mean,
what I'm proposing is the paragraph that's in here, we put a language in there to say that this money is we're not messing with 1 cent of this money. It's the same money allocated for the same thing. Only thing I'm proposing is that we say it's being spent for where we allocated it for. Is that correct, Mr. Manager?
Let me start back from the beginning.
Correct. Go ahead.
Again, this was a conversation that Chief Deputy Rose and I had right at the start of the fiscal year, and in their desire to move some folks around to do what they needed to do within their organization. Chief Rose came and said, I want to make sure we do this right. I don't want to do anything wrong. I don't want there to be heartache. I want to make sure we're doing it right. And I said, honestly, to Chief Rose, I don't know the answer to that question. Let me have some conversation with the folks at the School of Government. I did my homework. Chief Rose did his homework with the folks at the School of Government as well. And essentially what you have in that email that I sent to the board, just so everyone was on the same page, was that that the statutes allow the Board of Commissioners to set the FTEs for the Sheriff's Office and for the Register of Deeds. It also allows the Board of Commissioners to set in broad functional areas the spending of those departments because they are elected departments. So what that means is it has to be in the budget ordinance. My understanding, based upon my history, was, well, we have it listed out in 3 different divisions. If you move someone from a division to another division, are you allowed to do that? Because we have it listed in the budget document as being in that division. And my conversations with Carol Malonzi at the School of Government, who's an attorney that does this type of work, she said, actually, if you want to exercise position control, which is FTEs, the total number of FTEs, you can't tell the sheriff what to do with his folks. You can't tell him how to do his business, but you can say you have a total of 107 FTEs, and you can't have any more than that. You can't tell him who to have in what division. He can move them around however he wants to. But in order to exercise that control, it has to be in the budget ordinance itself. It can't just be in the budget document, which rolls up into the ordinance. So her comment was, if you want to do that, then you have to put and you can amend the budget ordinance to do that because you're not taking anything away from anybody. You would simply put in there that the Sheriff's Office may not exceed the total number of 107 FTEs for fiscal year 1920, and then you can put in there they cannot exceed expenditures in the following category, in the following amounts for 1920. Personnel and benefits, which we went back in and looked at all the costs across all the divisions, all the personnel, all the benefits costs, and rolled those up. So that's about $6.9 million. And then operating is 2.19 across all 3 divisions. And then capital was 400. So that is across the entire department, not by division. And you as a Board of Commissioners are not able to tell him line by line what he can do. You can only say broad functional areas, personnel and benefits, operating, and capital. So that was what we had discussed in making sure that everyone was on the same page, because I don't know that that was clear. It wasn't clear for me based upon my history.
And it's not controlling, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that we're trying to control his operations. What we're looking at is putting a cap on the people that can be hired. Am I correct?
That you are, the Board of Commissioners is allowed by statute to set the total number of positions in the sheriff's organization, the total number, not individuals, but the total number. And right now it's at 107. The conversation Chief Deputy Rose and I have had is they have no intent of going above 107. But the way it is written right now, to be clear, like you said, the sheriff could say, I'm going to take the money, I'm going to hire as many people as I want. And you, as a Board of Commissioners, according to the folks at the School of Government, couldn't do anything about that until next budget year. But again, there's not been anything underhanded. There's not been anything done inappropriately. This came out of a discussion that Chief Rose said, I want to make sure we do this and we do it correctly. And we all wanted to be on the same page.
And if he came back at the next budget session and asked this board, and we agreed to it, that I need 10 more deputies, we have that authority at that time to approve the personnel that he asked for. Am I correct?
You are correct, and you are also allowed anytime during the year to amend the budget and say, we want to give you 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 more people. You just can't take it away from him once you adopt the budget unless you take it away from everybody in the entire county at the same amount. And then there's still some language in there that says if he disagrees with that, he or she disagrees with that, then you can go to mediation about it. But there are some restrictions. You can't take away stuff that you've already given.
We don't want to take anything from him.
Understand? Just wanted to be clear with that.
I mean, he worked this budget, chief worked this budget as he presented it, and I don't want to take anything from the chief. But I would love to have, I will make a motion that we cap those FTEs for this budget year.
Second.
Question. Go ahead. Okay, let me go back and clarify something. If the sheriff runs out of money, if he goes out and hires 200 people, and he runs out of money in that particular budget, we don't have to keep paying that bill. He lets them go. They go home. Now, if he starts overrunning his budget, let me push this. If he starts overrunning his budget, he's not allowed to overrun his budget without our permission.
That's correct. I mean, everybody is in control of the budget. I think what you're saying, or at least let me say he has the ability right now to do kind of whatever he wants with his budget. He could hire as many people as he wanted. He hasn't said that he intends to do that, but the way it is written, he could go and take operational money and hire people with it, or capital money and hire people with it. Now, that would come back be in a bad place come next fiscal year when the board said, well, we're not going to give you money for that. But that is the way, the only way for the board to say 107 total is all you have is to put it in the budget ordinance and put the additional fiscal control there to say personnel benefits, operational, capital.
Well, one question that I have is within his 3 divisions, I guess you're talking about the law enforcement division, the jail division, and what's the 3rd division?
Telecommunications.
Well, I'm not sure telecommunications is a division because at one time, the commissioners have talked about taking that and putting it under a whole different management. And so I'm not sure that's a division of the sheriff unless we say it's a division of the sheriff. So I think you're really talking about there's two budgets are combined for the jail and law enforcement, and I think there's another budget that's a separate budget, and that is
Actually not. It is under the sheriff's office right now. The board has put that under there. He's running it. Unless you chose to pull that out, which I would urge the board not to do that because that would kind of be a mess right now. But those all go under the sheriff's office, so you would look at a total.
Well, but that may be true. I'm arguing the point that that's not really the total. It's only the total because we say it's the total. It's only the total because we say it's the total. That's a separate division that is independent of the sheriff, and the only reason that we are combining it is because we have agreed to combine it. So,
you're right. You have agreed to combine it, and it is combined in this fiscal year's budget, and you can't take it away from him now, not in this fiscal year's budget.
Okay, I can agree with that because, among those 3 divisions, the constitutional division is the jail. By the Constitution, he has charge of the jail. Technically, we could take the law enforcement away from him and have a chief of police for Beaufort County if we wanted to. Technically, we can take the emergency services and have an emergency services director for the county. So while this thing looks like, the sheriff's all powerful, when you start digging around in it, you find out that he's really not. And this board was snookered, and I sat right here and told them they were being snookered with the $400,000 for automobiles with the average fleet mileage less than $50,000. And within 30 days of the budget being passed, the sheriff wants to reorganize the department. Now, let me ask you, who is being honest with who?
Hey, Charlie. Good evening. County manager really summarized it very well. The comments from Commissioner Booth, I think, were pretty much spot on. The reason for the changes were we worked through the budget process. We made operational requests for what we would need, manpower-wise, to get the operations done as we needed to. Some of those were supported by the board and some of them weren't. Just like every position that comes available with our office, we do sort of an internal study about what best use that position could do for us. And we took our agency and the openings that we had, and we wanted to focus on being better at the situation that we needed to do, which was we needed more people for transports. We needed another investigator to take on some of the work helping municipalities that do not have law enforcement. And we needed some help in the administrative side of our office to fix some deficiencies that we've had, and quite frankly, getting bills paid. So we looked at all of those things, the positions that we had, whether they were in the jail, whether they were in communications, and whether in the sheriff's office. And we came up with a plan that we can make more sense of the people that we have in the places so we can get more efficient work done. And that started the communication with the county manager, and that's sort of where we are now. The sheriff's office doesn't have a issue or a problem with anything that's been discussed tonight. I think as a conversation that the county manager and I had is that the interpretation that we've had for years was that the board had the powers that we're talking about putting into the ordinance anyway. That you had the authority to set the number of full-time equivalents, and that you didn't have to have that in the ordinance. So we were operating that under that idea anyway. And then really to say, to take at least one line from Vice Chairman that he uses quite often, is that everything that we've done really for the last 5 years, we've looked to try to make the future better by making the decisions that we've had, and we've done a lot of things. We're not going to try anything that's a short-handed trick that doesn't give us enough juice for the squeeze, because we know that if we were to do something like that, then we would be punished heavily come July 1st of next year when we have a new budget. So we're not looking to do that. We're not looking to be punished. We're not looking to hurt the people of Beaufort County. We're looking to provide a better service than we did the year before, which is going to be our goal every year. And I think that for at least the last 5 years, we've been able to do that.
Chief?
Wait a minute. Mr. Brown?
Brian, I want to get something straight in my head, so I'll make sure that I have this right. You said that we, the Board of Commissioners, set the number of personnel that the Sheriff's Department can have at 107 right now. Is that correct?
That is where it is set right now, yes, sir,
Okay.
based on the budget.
All right, if Chief Deputy Rose came to us next budget season and said that he needed four more employees, which would make it 111. What my question is the following year, if we take those 4 back from him, we got to take 4 from everybody in the... Now, that's what I thought you said. That's why I wanted to get it clear.
No. Once you appropriate funds in the budget, so once you adopt the budget, you can't go back in and take money away from the sheriff's office during the fiscal year,
right?
Unless you prorate that same amount that you're taking from him from everybody else across the entire county. So everybody gets hit essentially the same amount. Like if you did a 2% rollback for everybody, that would be the only way you could do it. And then there's still some language in the statute that says if the sheriff doesn't agree with that, he can fight you, and you have to go to mediation and figure it out.
Thank you.
Commissioner Booth.
It's like I forestated, we are not here, and Charlie and I had this conversation last year about moving some people around. I don't have one problem with that at all. That's what you get paid the big bucks to do. The thing that I'm looking at is what we put this cap up there. For if you move people from communications and put them transport, that's your prerogative as it stands. And we cannot touch that. I don't want to touch that. But what I was saying is just if we want to make sure that what we allocated money for, which you have done a remarkable job, we didn't always agree on some of the things you said, but it worked out. I was wrong and you was right. But that's the only thing that I'm looking at is to put a cap on the FTEs and nothing else.
I'm not looking to micromanage. Again, we want you to run the sheriff's department to the best of your ability. Commissioner Waters.
I'm assuming, based on the conversation that I've heard from the county manager and from you, that you have, both of you have no problems going in and putting this language in place that we have here.
There's no problem from the sheriff's office, and once again, even if we did have a problem, then there's nothing that we could do about it anyway.
Well, if I remember, when we started the discussion, it was more about moving people than it was about worried about anything else. And that's why we're here right now.
And that's absolutely correct. And we're talking about a semi-permanent change, as permanent gets at our office with positions, meaning that we understand that we have the flexibility as long as you understand that we know the operation that we need to run. We know how to do that, and we're going to make the moves on the Rubik's Cube to fulfill those functions to the best of our ability all the time. And if I can, while I've got the hot mic, is that I do get to be sort of the face or the punching bag for the sheriff in a lot of occasions in this arena. And that is the case here, is that this is not my budget, this is not my operation. This 100% of the time is the sheriff's budget and the sheriff's operation. And I do think that he works hard and diligently to make sure that he understands the rules and that he plays by the rules. And sometimes I get a little bit of credit for that, and I appreciate it, but this is the sheriff's operation and the sheriff's show. And I appreciate that. So.
Thanks, Charlie. And Jerry, let me clear this up so I can sleep tonight.
Okay.
No, I am not trying to micromanage the sheriff's office. I don't know where that little sarcastic remark come from. I told you at the beginning, I'm not a sheriff, I'm not a deputy, I'm a commissioner, I'm Ed Booth. So don't even put that snippet out there that we're trying to micromanage the sheriff. Here's one commissioner that has been in chief office less than probably any commissioner up here. So that I'm not trying to micromanage his office. When he calls me to come by his office, I will go. I won't go in his jail, but I will go by his office. So I want you to understand that. This is not nothing to micromanage the sheriff. The people elected the sheriff. So I just had to get that off my chest so I could sleep tonight.
Thank you, Chief Deputy. Need a motion to go into closed session. Oh, I'm sorry, we haven't voted on that?
Yeah.
Need okay, all those in favor, raise your right hand. All those opposed, 7-0, motion passes. We good?
Motion to go in closed session.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor? I'll raise your right hand. 7-0. Up.
It's okay if I second your motion.
Y'all don't have to leave.
Tell him.
Don't have to leave. Did you? I thought David said we had to go in closed session.
No, we're going to bed here.
Wait.
Hold on.
The motion has got to be, David's got to make the appropriate motion so that it's done correctly.
Okay.
Legally.
Okay.
All right.
This is a closed session, attorney-client privilege. This is in the case of Beaufort County versus Bergen Amerisource. This is the opioid litigation, and that's the purpose of the meeting, is to, I'm going to tell you some things about it. Attorney-client.
You already did the motion.
We ready? We need a motion to come back into open session. Got a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All those in favor? Thank you.